War is not only about tanks, missiles or drones of the latest generation. It is also about non-standard solutions that are born out of an urgent need. When the enemy terrorizes our cities with Shaheds every day, and each air defense missile costs like a small residential complex, we need to look for a way to shoot these tin cans down cheaper, faster, and easier. And now Ukrainian engineers have again proved that nothing is impossible. Ordinary crop dusters, the very same aircraft that not long ago were flying over our fields spraying fertilizer, have now gone out hunting enemy kamikaze drones. And believe me, today I will definitely surprise you. No, you're not imagining it. The old agricultural planes really have been turned into combat machines. As we've just seen, one of them, a Czech Moravian Z137 Agro turbo, has been fitted with a mount for an R-73 air-to-air missile. For those who don't know, the R-73 is a Soviet missile that is usually carried by fighters like the Su-27 or MiG-29. And now imagine this munition hanging under the wing of a quiet, undemanding little aircraft that no one would normally perceive as a threat. It just flies over the fields and then, bang! It suddenly shoots down a Putin shard. I think the Russians really tensed up after that. Now let's go through the specifications in detail and compare this crop duster with its counterparts.
The Moravan Z137 Agro turbo aircraft is a modernized version of another agricultural plane. Its first flight in the prototype was made on September 6, 1981, and the aircraft itself took to the sky for the first time on December 29, 1983. Serial production of this model lasted from the 85th to the 87th years. From 1985 to 1987, around 51 units were built, including two-seat training options. The aircraft's speed is up to 285 km per hour, its maximum altitude is 5,500 meters, its range is 641 km, and its takeoff weight is about 2,500 kilograms. On the one hand, it cannot outrun a cruise missile, but on head-on courses it has enough time to intercept along the correct trajectory and hit the target, which has already produced results. The ammunition this retro aircraft received are Soviet R-73 missiles. The rearmament was minimal and actually requires only the installation of pylons and the connection of the guidance element without complex integration with radar systems. So what are the advantages of using such a retro aircraft to shoot down Putin's tin cans? First, the price. Getting a crop duster into the air costs many times less than sending an expensive fighter jet back and forth. Second, availability and presence. Ukraine still has a certain number of such planes left. And although they are not new, they could be converted fairly quickly. Most importantly, they can do the job even where there are no large airfields or complex infrastructure, that is, from our fields. It is, after all, a crop duster. We can say that this is a kind of air partisan. It flies low, and I would even say, very low. The speed is modest, with a maximum of about 285 km per hour. But thanks to the right tactics and the use of heat-seeking missiles, it can successfully catch a shard on a head-on course. And here is an important point. In most cases, these enemy drones fly at a relatively low speed of 150 to 180 km per hour, which gives a chance to intercept them even on such a seemingly slow aircraft. Let's be realistic. This aircraft is more about countering drones. It will not overtake a cruise missile that is almost 3 times faster. But even here things are not so clear, because on opposite courses the aircraft can still manage to lock onto the missile and launch its R-73 at it. Are there any cons? Of course there are. There are only 2 missiles on board, and the aircraft itself is not particularly armored, which means it often has to operate in risky conditions, especially if enemy jets or a lot of missiles may be in the air. But as a mobile element of additional defense against Shaheds, enemy reconnaissance drones, or even missiles, this is a very interesting move. Now let's compare it with what the Russians have. They rely on unmanned loitering ammunition, Lancets, and Cubs. These are autonomous, unmanned systems, but they cost tens of thousands of dollars. And the most interesting thing is that their effectiveness against fast and maneuverable targets is not so high.
Although, to be fair, I should say that one Russian-designed bureau modified a plane designated Yak-52B for intercepting long-range kamikaze drones of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. They installed some kind of automatic shotgun on the wing of the Yak and an optical sighting station under the wing. However, I would not say that this has brought them any conscious results so far. But, as always, the reaction of Russian propagandists only adds confidence that the direction of Ukrainian engineers is correct. They have already managed to laugh at corn growers with missiles, but in the same broadcasts they began to demand to strengthen the protection of strategic facilities from such threats. In short, it's the familiar script: first they mock it, then they admit the problem is real, and then they complain that Ukraine together with Europe is successfully adapting to the realities of modern warfare.
Let us still clarify a few outstanding points. The war has not ended. The enemy has a lot of manpower. They have reserves too, and they have weapons. Supplies are coming in constantly. And Europe's defense industry is working hard for them. If you look at it, we've already seen attempts to use their version of the Jaran drone against our territory. The Americans have already announced that they built their own version, but it is closer to the Shahd's than to the Jarans. But we must understand that no one is going to say, Trump did well, now we'll make a deal and we'll comply with everything. No, if someone thinks that everything will be over by the 3rd of September, they shouldn't deceive themselves. Sorry, I will say something unpopular: the war will last for a long time. That is what, if you like, is written in all the documents.
Here is what our expert community say about the Ukrainian move with the crop duster. It is the optimal option for countering Russian drones because Ukraine really does have such planes, and the R-73 missiles themselves are relatively inexpensive. The defense intelligence of Ukraine used them on the Magura naval drone, and back then the intelligence officers managed to shoot down several Russian helicopters. The rocket weighs almost 100 kilograms. They can be carried not only by light aircraft of various modifications, but even by UAVs, and for that the drone has to be heavy enough to lift at least 3 or 4 missiles. Against jet-powered drones you can use heat-seeking missiles like the R-73, ASRAAM and AMRAAM. Only they can catch up with them. There is no official information yet about scaling up this project. But if it proves effective, it is entirely possible that we will see whole mobile groups of such hunters patrolling the skies over cities or energy facilities. This will be especially relevant in autumn and winter, when the Russians are trying to massively hit critical infrastructure. This time the conclusion of the episode is very simple. We are once again showing the world that Ukrainian ingenuity and our readiness to fight for our freedom have no limits. And if for that, we have to turn a tractor into a tank and a crop duster into a fighter, we will do it. Because what is the main thing for us? It is to close the sky from the enemy in any way and protect our country from the enemy invasion.